I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Puny Pod. Welcome to Prattle World. I'm your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to another Puny Pod, a short-form podcast where I revisit a specific film or comic all by myself. Welcome back, guys. It has been a little while, about a week or so, and this is the final inclusion in the Spider-Man month. I hope you've been enjoying all the Spider-Man related stuff. I hope you went to see Far From Home, which is a fun, rip-roaring adventure film, and a great continuation of the MCU and where it's going to go in the future. So very exciting. So I took to Twitter to basically ask what comic book should I do next. I put a few choices up there, a few kind of classic Spidey tales, classic yet underrated kind of Spider-Man stories to focus on. And the votes, you voted, all the Twitterati voted on what should be my next choice. And they went with, you all voted for, Spider-Man vs. Wolverine, 1987, dark, bleak espionage tale, which had huge ramifications on Spider-Man. Not so much on Wolverine, but it's a really strong Wolverine story anyway, if you're looking for that. It's a really good take. Quite large as well, about 65 pages, so it's larger than your average comic book or annual in most cases, and I think we'll just get stuck in. So yes, it kind of opens with a flashback, and we see Wolverine is kind of his yellow costume, because at that time he wasn't really wearing that at all. He was more in the kind of orange and tan, or the tan and brown version. I think that's my preference, to be honest. I think I prefer that for his particular adventures. It kind of suits him a bit more. It's more like a hunting garb, and bright yellow isn't really. Yeah, it looks good. Don't get me wrong. I still like the design, but yeah, I think this is a better fit for his character, and it's a lot more kind of simple looking and simplified, but still has the lovely kind of ears, almost Batman-like ears that Wolverine has. So he's there. Him and someone known as Charlemagne, who is kind of another kind of black ops espionage style kind of freelance agent, which kind of Wolverine was in the past and has been for the CIA, the FBI. He's worked with Carol Danvers when she was a spy. He's worked with Team X, with Sabretooth, and various other in his past before he became full-on Wolverine. So this is kind of makes sense where we are in his history at the moment. But yeah, so it's a battle between the KGB and Charlemagne and Wolverine at the kind of behind the Iron Curtain, behind the wrong side of the Berlin Wall, and Charlemagne's asked Wolverine to come and help. He does what he does best. He is the best at what he does, and what he does is not very nice, and that's just mostly eviscerating, stabbing, cutting, beheading, dismembering of all these KGB agents, which he goes into one of his patented berserker rages. And yeah, they're all dead before he knows it. And Charlemagne disappears, leaving a kind of little keepsake for Wolverine. And years go by, we're in modern day New York. Spidey is zipping round as he does, thwip, 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 thwip it out, and he sees a beautiful woman, but he takes no notice of it. And then somebody comes running out of a kind of a drugstore, and the people who run the drugstore, two very nice kind of Russian people, are both in the back, one shot to the head, professionally killed. Spider-Man kind of this is a dark tale. Like if you want a Spider-Man tale which is jokey and fun and lighthearted, this is not the book. Like the late 80s were not, in comic books, we were taking a turn towards kind of darker storytelling, more adult storytelling, pushing the boundaries of what you can tell in a superhero comic book. Disposable I mean, obviously in the 60s there was a lot of kind of adult themes and adult ideas and stuff, but they were really upping the ante in regards to violence and the depiction of violence and what you could write about as well, from kind of pushing forward from Frank Miller onto kind of Watchmen and various other things. This was all kind of happening. So yeah, this is he kind of, in this story, Peter's very obsessed with kind of mortality and death, and and his own death and deaths prior to this. It's a very morbid, kind of fatalistic Spider-Man story, and if that's something you're not into, then definitely skip this story. But if you're more inclined for a darker Spider-Man tale, like Kraven's Last Hunt, which was, I believe it was published a little after this, or kind of those standard Wolverine tales, this is your book. And yeah, it's kind of it's got a kind of a Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy kind of vibe as well to it, which is really, really strong. Not long after that, like I was saying, earlier, that Peter took pictures of the bodies and he felt really quite dirty about this, quite horrible about this, but it does make sense for that to kind of, for him to be doing that. Yeah, later on in the story, he's still in New York, and he's walking around Times Square, and he's noticing all the kind of what Times Square has become in recent years, which isn't very nice, I think, as he describes it in so many words. Then all of a sudden, his spider sense goes off, and he realizes there's a sniper, gets out of sight, tries to take off his civilian clothes, removes them, and then after that, he's trying to take off as quick as he can, but he keeps cursing himself for being too slow, not being fast enough. So yeah, he really is struggling there. Just can't seem to get out there. And by the time he gets out there, the sniper's gone, more people are dead, blames himself, because that's what Spider-Man does. He blames himself for all these deaths at his hands. He's one of those kind of guilty kind of people, and he feels personally responsible for all those deaths, even though really, he just can't shoulder that kind of burden, that responsibility, but that's who he is and that's what he does. So yeah, not long after that, Ned Leeds, star of the, Far From Home and Homecoming as well. He's in the comic book version, he is a reporter who did go out with Betty Brant, much like in Far From Home, which is a really nice nod I like. So yeah, he discovers the links between all these people that have been murdered, and they're all former KGB or retired KGB agents. And he links that to Charlemagne, the freelance assassin that Wolverine was involved in at the beginning of the story, in the flashback. And he says that there's links to Berlin and the Berlin Wall and various other agencies and stuff. So he says, right, we need to go there. We need to dig into this further because this has got deep ramifications. The people need to know about this. I think at this point, like, Ned Leeds has never been like a best mate to Peter Parker. He's always been kind of almost like Wolverine and Cyclops, a bit of a cock block kind of thing. But he doesn't hate him, but he doesn't like love him. He still treats him well, and treats him purely because Betty's married to him, and some respect, as it is. And they go over there, and Wolverine, he knows he's been invited to Berlin as well, by Charlemagne to meet up. And while he's there, he catches a sense it's Spider-Man, and he sees Peter Parker's true face. So this is the first time in continuity that Wolverine has discovered who Spider-Man is. Effectively, he knows his identity, and there's not many characters at this point in time, I think, apart from maybe Daredevil and a few other people, that maybe villains mostly, that have found out his secret identity, proper, and kept that knowledge and maintained that knowledge and kept that secret. He's been invited to Charlemagne, by Charlemagne to Berlin to basically, he knows what's been going on. He knows all about the dead KGB agents, former KGB agents, and these are the people that tried to kill Charlemagne at the Berlin Wall in the flashback. So she wants her revenge, basically. Wolverine's not entirely sure why he's being contacted, but he knows what she's doing. So yeah, there's a quite a little. I've already spoiled it, but there's a reveal that Charlemagne is actually a woman and an assassin and a freelance operative and former lover of Wolverine. That's a little kind of, you never really see who it is. And the beautiful woman Spider-Man sees is Charlemagne as well, and that gets revealed later on. But yeah, so he breaks into, basically Wolverine jumps in through the window and says, "I know who you are. This is it. Where's your costume? Let's go." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't bring a costume because I'm giving up being Spider-Man because of all the stuff he's been dealing with at the start, all these kind of killings and stuff." He's like, Spider-Man's useless. It doesn't, it's the classic trope of Spider-Man quitting being Spider-Man. Peter Parker's like, Spider-Man only brings me trouble and heartache and pain, so I'm just getting rid of it. He does weirdly bring the web shooters and his belts with the web cartridges in, but not the costume, which I think's a touch weird. I get the whole thing. Why would you pack that and not the other stuff? I don't know. It's a weird kind of thing, but anyway, they head out. Wolverine explains the situation, what's going on, and to get out of Berlin. Just don't stick your nose in any further. It's dangerous. You're going to mess things up for me and this whole kind of mission. So just get right out. So Peter he agrees and he goes, yeah, fair enough. And he heads back to the hotel room, only to find that Ned is there tied to a chair with his throat slit. Now, this is quite interesting because there's a minor retcon with this later on in the comics. There's an issue of The Amazing Spider-Man. I can't remember which specific issue, but it's revealed in that issue that, because it's thought in this storyline that that Ned is killed by the KGB. But in The Amazing Spider-Man, the editors decided to reveal the identity of the Hobgoblin using the clues that Roger Stern left. They made the assumption, because Roger Stern actually never told anybody who the original Hobgoblin was, who he was going to be, he planned to have when it was revealed who that original Hobgoblin would be. So with all the clues that were left, he went. I think it was Tom DeFalco, I want to say. He said, right, it's Ned. We're gonna say it's Ned. So then Ned was the Hobgoblin for many, many years until the miniseries Hobgoblin Lives, which I highly recommend as well, and the original Hobgoblin saga. Definitely check those stories out, because the Hobgoblin is a very underrated Spider-Man villain. He was like the main villain of the 80s until like Venom rolled around. I would argue, or Dr. Octopus probably, but he was definitely a huge, not even definitely the Hobgoblin. So I won't go into that too much further, because it's just a lot of continuity and stuff. We'll stick to this. So Peter's in there. There's KGB agents are surrounding him, start asking him questions, and then Wolverine comes in. Before Spider-Man even knows what's going on, before he's even taken in that Ned's dead. Ned's dead, baby. Ned's dead. He's killed them all, and they're jumping out the window. And again, he says, get lost, get out of Berlin. What are you doing? Why are you still here? Get out. And Spider-Man goes, like, in his kind of, he's got so much running through his head in this. Like, there's so many times in the story where he kind of just freezes or stops, or like he's just lost in his own kind of thoughts most of the time. Like, he gets distracted. Even when he's fighting Wolverine towards the end, he's still lost in what's going on, and if he could die, and what would that mean? And, it's just this kind of morbid state of mind. It's really fascinating to see Spider-Man in this kind of, again, very much like Kraven's Last Hunt, which is in a collection with this story. I think it's the Epic Collection, Spider-Man Kraven's Last Hunt Epic Collection. This is all collected together in a nice big volume. And Kraven's Last Hunt is probably the best Spider-Man story ever. It's definitely top 3 at least, at the very, very least. But yeah, and then Spider-Man's like, no, I've got to, he realizes, he thinks maybe Wolverine's in on this, maybe there's something going on. I don't have all the details. So he goes to like this costume store and asks them for like a bodysuit, like a black bodysuit. He's like, we've got nothing, we haven't got anything, sorry, but we do have this, and it's a Spider-Man costume with, I think it's Die Spinne, which I think is the spider, maybe, believe in German. So he wears that instead, but it's basically the old red and blue one, because he left the black and white one at home. So he's out there swinging, just tries to kind of find out about all this, and then Spidey trace. I think he leaves a tracer on Wolverine's clothes, and he's following it, and it takes him over again the wrong side of the Berlin Wall, and he has to cross the Berlin Wall, and he almost gets shot. He lands in a minefield. I think he gets caught on some barbed wire. Quite a serious segment, and it's kind of it's kind of shocking to see how secure the Berlin Wall was. I mean, I don't know if that's accurate, if there was all this sort of stuff, but it's kind of scary to think that it might have been that well protected, minefields and barbed wire and snipers and guards on top of that and stuff. It's it's quite. I tell you what, it does have a little bit. It's got a little bit. I watched Atomic Blonde recently, and it does have a little bit of that as well about it. I know that's kind of it's in Berlin, it's set in the 80s, it's, the fall of the Berlin Wall. It's really quite got that kind of vibe, and it's quite interesting. But yeah, he narrowly avoids dying just trying to cross the Berlin Wall again, because his head's just a mess. It's just an absolute mess. He doesn't know what he's thinking about or what's going on. And again, very morbid, very kind of fatalistic, and it's almost like, usually like in Spider-Man stories, it's like, he's the reason he wants to live is to see the people he loves, Aunt May, Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy. But in this, it's like, nothing could be further from the truth. I think he just kind of, towards the end, I think he realises a little bit, maybe there are people he should be fighting for and stuff. Ned dying has a huge effect on Betty Brant's character for the rest of history as well, in the Spider-Man books, and obviously the Hobgoblin stuff as well. Finally, Wolverine catches up with Charlie, or Charlemagne, and it's revealed she's a woman at that point. We learn that all the intelligence agencies ever are working together trying to get Charlemagne, and she knows she hasn't got long. She knows that she's going to die. Someone's going to just get her. So at some point, her luck is going to run out, and one of these groups, one of the people in these intelligence agencies, is going to get her. Is going to kill her. And basically, she's asking for Wolverine's help, but she wants to get revenge on the last few KGB agents, so she can kind of clean her slate and go, I'm all right with dying, but it has to be once I have my revenge. And Wolverine's trying to stop her, trying to delay her, and she goes, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. We can run away. We can be happy. We can go somewhere. She's like, no, I absolutely have to. And they go out for this lavish meal, and like Wolverine's like, we should have gone to a McDonald's. And she's like, no, if I'm gonna, they're gonna find us anyway. I might as well have a nice like slap up meal. And then Spider-Man like kicks the door in, and it's like, hey, did you realise that that food's poison? They were like, yep. Did you realise that all these guys are KGB? Yeah. And did you realise that they're all packing heat as well? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, how badly have I messed up? And then all the KGB agents just start shooting. Charlemagne's got a gun out, and Spidey's beating up, and then they jump out the window. Out the window they go, and they're like, where's Charlemagne? She's like, she's gone. And then they're trying to track her down. Wolverine's got his suit on. They're trying to track her down, and to no luck. And Spidey doesn't really like, in a lot of these stories with a kind of killer character like the Punisher or something, Spidey will always try and go, nope, no killing, absolutely no killing, we are not murdering anyone, no killing. In this, he kind of, again, in that kind of fatalistic, kind of morbid attitude, he takes it in, but he doesn't like stop it. He doesn't like, he goes, hey, no killing, or stop it. I mean, he does have issue with certain things that Wolverine's doing, like torture. I think he was like, okay, that's where, but all the other stuff, he's kind of, well, I don't know if it's even hinted that Wolverine kills them, but it's already pretty bleak and dark and stuff. So I imagine he does, but it's not outwardly shown, a lot of the violence, but it's still that tone and the artwork. I think the artwork was by Mark Bright, I want to say, and the story by Jim Owsley, which he would later take the name Christopher Priest, and he would go on to write probably one of the best runs on the Black Panther, a defining run on the Black Panther. If you've not read Christopher Priest's run on the Black Panther, do yourself a favour. If you like the Black Panther, go read that, because it's fun, it's quick, it's full of satire, it's wonderfully written, drawn. It's a great run. I've not even finished it myself. It is quite a hefty run, and it's very much of its time, kind of the late 90s to mid 2000s, but it's still very good. But yeah, I would definitely look that one up if you get a chance. But going back to the story, basically Logan goes, it's your fault. All these people are dead. If you didn't interrupt that meal, I would have kept tabs on her, and I would have stopped her from doing this. The death of these men, that blood is on your hands. You're responsible. Spider-Man's angry. He doesn't like the idea that he is, responsible. And Wolverine even says maybe I was a bit harsh on him. And then Wolverine realizes the reason why Charlemagne has contacted him. In the end, this is going to end. She's going to die, and he's, they're meditating, and she said, he says she'll contact me soon because I realise what she wants me to do now. I realise the reason I'm here. And Wolverine meets up with her in a graveyard. He's like, "Are you happy? You got what you wanted. Are you happy?" She doesn't really respond. she just kind of walks towards him, and he knows what he has to do. And Charlie wants Wolverine to kill her, basically, to put her out of her misery, because if anybody else gets hold of her, they're going to prolong it and make her suffer and torture, poison her. All the worst things you can possibly imagine they're going to do to, because of the trouble and all the people she's murdered and giving, the KGB a bad name. It's not good. So they... they're on their way. She knows they're on their way. Wolverine's there, and this wouldn't be the first time that the Wolverine would end up, having to put claws into a woman he loves. He did that with Jean Grey in Grant Morrison's run. He did it with Lady Mariko in Wolverine's run when she was poisoned. But yeah, just kind of, he seems to be put a lot of women out of their misery, sadly and tragically. I think that's kind of inherent. I don't know if this is the first time he does it. I believe it is, but it certainly isn't the last. But as he goes to do it, as he goes to pop his claws, so to speak, he flinches and he doesn't deliver a killing blow. But then he realizes that, she's going to suffer unless he does an actual killing blow, and goes to do it. But Spidey finds them and stops him. And he says, don't get involved. You don't know what this is all about. He's like, you're going to kill your girlfriend. I'm absolutely not letting that happen. And again, this is where it happens. This is where Wolverine versus Spider-Man, and they begin to fight. And it's quite evenly matched, I'd say. It's quite an evenly matched fight, but I think Wolverine has the experience and he's got the killing edge on him that he's going to pursue. He will kill him if he has to. He even says that in the dialogue. I will kill you if I have to. And this is a really intense fight for Spider-Man. He's trying to keep up and trying to stay one step ahead. He does kind of manage to get. I won't spoil the entire fight, but he does manage to get his licks in. Wolverine doesn't stab Spider-Man, but he comes very close. There's a bit where Wolverine's going to pop his claws into his skull, and Spidey's going to strangle him and or bash his head in until his brain turns to mush. But he doesn't get the hand. And the KGB turn up, or the other intelligence agencies involved all turn up to kill Charlemagne. And Spider-Man and Wolverine are separated by some kind of spotlights. Wolverine kind of lurks in the darkness. And then somebody sneaks up on Spider-Man, and he thinks it's Wolverine still. He's like, I can't believe Wolverine still wants to fight after all this. He turns around and he gives him Wolverine the hardest punch he can, because he's like, can't believe you still want to fight. And he hits, but it's not Wolverine. It's Charlemagne. It's Charlie, and he doesn't realize. His spider sense goes off. He knows, and she hits the ground hard, and she's dying. And Wolverine states in the dialogue as well that she knew what she was doing. She's a professional. She knew that Spider-Man, I think the term they use is Spider-Man was all cocked, ready to fight. And she knows she shouldn't have got that close to him. She knows of his, that he would have reacted in that way. But that's what she wanted. So she effectively commits suicide via Spider-Man. And this is possibly the second person he's inadvertently caused the death of. Well, other than Gwen Stacy, as far as I'm aware. I mean, there's people that have, not physically been killed. Like, he's not had a direct contact with killers. So Gwen Stacy, Green Goblin knocks her off the bridge. He tries to save her with his webs. The tension on the webs hits the leg and snaps her neck. With this, it's a very similar situation. And in the last few panels of the kind of end of the story, because basically after that, the KGB all the intelligence agencies, Wolverine says, she's dead, that's it. And they just leave, because they don't really want to tussle with Wolverine and Spider-Man if they can avoid it, I think. They go home, Wolverine goes home, Spider-Man goes home, and all the while, the same panel, the same scene is replaying over and over in a kind of bloody red and white of him striking Charlemagne or Charlie in the face, and her falling back and dying in Wolverine's arms. And I told you it was bleak. So it's terrifying that he's effectively killed somebody that, through no fault of his own. Like we said, it's stated that, Charlie knew exactly what she was doing, so Spider-Man didn't, and he doesn't have the guts. Like Wolverine says, you don't have the guts to kill me. You don't have the killer instinct. You're never going to do it. But Charlie's dead, and, this is still in continuity. I think there's a storyline called No One Dies, where Spider-Man dreams about all the people that he's inadvertently caused the death of, or being Spider-Man has caused the death of, or being linked to Spider-Man, or being linked to Peter Parker in some way has caused the death of these people. And he speaks to Charlie directly because he's the one, he directly killed her, more so than Gwen. Absolutely, there's no kind of qualms about it. He did, kind of manslaughter, you guess. I mean, you can call it that. So quite tragic, really. And he has to kind of go home, and luckily Mary Jane is there to kind of comfort him in this time of grief. But even Jonah's like, where's Ned? Where's Ned? And that, again, huge ramifications on Spider-Man. Again, not so much on Wolverine, but it's still a nice Wolverine tale. I do recommend, there's a nice what-if story, Spider-Man versus Wolverine What If you can find it. It's on Marvel Unlimited as well. You can probably get it on eBay quite cheap. And it basically, if Spider-Man after that, he kind of gets trained by Wolverine and becomes an assassin. It becomes more like Wolverine, so he dives, and it's, again, really dark. He's kind of got his web shooters, got guns on and stuff. So it's kind of a darker tale, but most what if stories are quite dark. But I quite like that element to it, that kind of anything can happen in a what if story. If you're looking for another really good team up book featuring Wolverine and Spider-Man, I think it's Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine. It's a really, really cool mini-series with like time travel, different villains, and all sorts of stuff. But it really kind of examines their relationship and their. I've always liked it because they don't really get on, but they've got things in common. That's what I like about these team ups. Like it shows you the differences characters have, and the intimate kind of things they have in common. A lot of that time. So, you have friends that, you don't necessarily you're not the same as your friend. It would be pretty dull if you were. And I think I like the differences between Spider-Man and Wolverine. I think it's always interesting to see when they're together and how they both operate and so different. They're so different the ways they operate and how they work together. Like anytime Wolverine's on the Avengers with Spider-Man, or Spider-Man and the X-Men are teaming up, there's always some comedy or some kind of, gravitas, or there's something to be had, there's some fun to be had. I remember during the J. Michael Straczynski run, when he joins the New Avengers and Wolverine's cracking on to Mary Jane, flirting with Mary Jane, Spider-Man just throws him out a window because he knows he can survive it. Comes back in, he's like not happy. So yeah, some really good stuff, but I highly recommend the story. Where can you find it? So like I said, it was in Amazing Spider-Man Kraven's Last Hunt Epic Collection. So I mean, you should own Kraven's Last Hunt anyway, so if you want to get this as well, they're both really cool. Really nice kind of... there is links to it, there is linkage between the two, and they're in the same sort of tone. Feels like the same sort of vibe you get from both. Also, you can get it in Wolverine versus the Marvel Universe collection, which is a set of stories where Wolverine fights, people in the Marvel Universe, so like the Hulk or Captain America, it's kind of battles like that, where you can find Wolverine, some of the best fights he's ever been in. But yeah, and I mentioned the Spider-Man versus Wolverine What If. Highly recommend that as well. But no, it's a really good book, and there are older reprints. I think I've got an older reprint somewhere at home as well. Again, also available on Marvel Unlimited. Most of these stories that I've mentioned as well, probably all of them, are currently available on Marvel Unlimited, which is a subscription package where it's basically Netflix for comics. There's over 25,000 comics on there, and they add new and old ones every week. The newer ones are 6 months behind, so they can sell the physical books or the digital copies. If you can wait a little while till they come out, if you can be patient, it's well worth it. But yeah, I mean, I pay for it. It's like $7 a month, I think, or it's about 50 quid for the whole year. And to be honest, once you've read 20 books, you pretty much paid for it anyway. So you always get your money's worth. If you read like a big crossover loads of times, you're going to get your money's worth. But no, really good, really, really good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed Spider-Man month, and I really hope that we'll do some more themed months coming up. We do have my Halloween one, Shock Phobia Fest. That'll be coming up around October. And then also we're going to look at Christmas as well. So the Alternativity Stories will be back. And hopefully I can do like a full one, proper complete month. I don't think I managed to do that last time because of technology and all sorts of other stuff going wrong. But that's fine. This has been great. I'm so glad I could do some more Spider-Man themed stuff. I do want to do a bit more Spider-Man themed stuff coming up. Because it's kind of lit my fire again, Far From Home, and playing the video game, the PS4 video game, kind of lit my fire again. So I think we'll do some more stuff in the future with myself or my friends, or we'll see what's coming up. But yeah, the future's open at the moment. If you've got any ideas, let me know. You can find me on the social medias, so it's Spider-Dan Secret Boars. Oh, sorry, no. That's my Instagram. Spider-Dan Secret Boars is my Instagram. Facebook, it's at Secret Boars. Twitter, at Dan_Boars. Podcast is available on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and many, many more. Thanks again for joining me this week, guys. This has been fantastic. I really loved rereading this. And I hope you guys, go out and find it and enjoy it yourself, because it is a hell of a book. I am the best there is at what I do, and what I do is podcasts. See you next time, guys. Bye.